Welcome, Liberty Lunch fans. My name is Dan Fishman. I am the Executive Director of People for Liberty, and you are joining us for a special Liberty Lunch broadcast where we are talking about Tennessee. We're talking about Nashville. We're talking about a festival that's happening there this weekend, the Freer Future Fest, put on by the Students for Liberty. Now, a little bit of my personal background. One of the Liberty events that I started to get really excited about was one that was held in DC every year called LibertyCon, Liberty Convention. And that was also put on by the Students for Liberty. And while I was there, I was amazed to see that if you reach people early, if you bring a message to Liberty students, you get converts early, people who understand the basic ideas that, liberty isn't a right issue or a left issue. It's an up issue. All we got to do is stand up for liberty. And so LibertyCon in DC, wonderful event. And then sadly, while I was executive director of the Libertarian Party, COVID hit and LibertyCon had to be canceled in DC. And so now Students for Liberty are bringing it back. They're bringing it back in Nashville. It's going to be called Freer Future Fest. And I'm happy to have on as a guest my friend Josh Eagle. Josh, how's it going?
It's going well, Dan. Thanks for having me.
Absolute pleasure to have you. So tell me a little bit about Students for Liberty. You guys, a long-standing liberty organization. What don't people know about SFL?
Well, okay, so in a nutshell, SFL's entire focus is about elevating, platforming, and empowering students to go out and fight for liberty across the world. So while there are many organizations in the US that do this, there aren't many organizations that do this globally. And so what SFL's entire focus is identifying students, giving them the tools and resources they need to share the values of liberty and spread those messages in their communities and in their countries. And we do that across the world. We have societies in Belarus. We are affiliates in Belarus and Nigeria and Afghanistan. We have them pretty much in almost every country you can imagine. And they're all there on the ground fighting for freedom for all people, not just a select few. And so, in a nutshell, in the US, we've been around for about 10 or 15 years now. We've brought through thousands of people through our program. And obviously, as you said, Dan, we've put on many different events to bring people across the spectrum together. And that's what Freer Future Fest in Nashville is going to be this weekend.
That is awesome. I'm excited to hear about that. Can you tell me a little bit about why Nashville? I personally love it because it's really convenient. I can drive there. And since I'm People for Liberty is also going to be a presenter.
Yep.
We've got a booth. So I'm bringing the truck filled with banners and materials and stuff like that. And I'm glad it's in a place that I can drive to. But what made you guys think Nashville, aside from the fact that I believe it's pretty close to your house?
Well, it had nothing to do with me. I actually joined the team after all this was in motion. I will tell you, Nashville is a very central location. The weather's amazing, especially during the fall. It's a great economic environment. It's more affordable than some of these other larger, more liberal states. And it's just a great location, a growing city, a hub for culture, and art, and centrally located, so you could easily get to it from most of the East Coast.
Well, my understanding is actually that you guys are within a day's drive of 60% of the population of the United States.
That's correct. Yep.
That is a pretty fascinating statement for it. So tell me a little bit, and I want people to know that they can get tickets right now. If they can, there's still tickets available. FreerFutureFest.com. People can go there right now, buy tickets, and check out the amazing list of speakers who are there. So tell me who's your highlight, because there's too many speakers to see everybody.
Yeah, no, obviously, no. Joe Jorgensen's a big one. I'm a big fan of Hannah Cox. We're going to have a slew of very liberty-leaning Twitch streamers there too. Vaush is going to be debating Bastiat there. There's two large Twitch streamers. Destiny, who's also very big in the community, is going to be there. Anthony Davies, Gloria Alvarez, a lot of the people from the Bitcoin community. Dan Held's going to be there. Ai Weiwei, who's a very famous artist and Chinese dissident, is going to be addressing the group remotely. So just a really great slew of people, and this really couldn't come at a better time, Dan, because right now, and we were talking about this before we went live. Right now, resentment of an unchanging political status quo has ramped up toxicity in our politics in the last couple of years. I think this is due to the fact that our political institutions are not functioning as designed. The status quo continues to be perpetrated year over year. And, nowadays it almost seems like politicians on the left and the right define themselves not by their own values, but they define themselves by what they oppose and how they're going to hurt the other side. And so what this has done is it's created an environment where possessing that ring of power, as I call it, the authority of government, is becoming the paramount value. It's all politicians talk about is I can win. I can take this and I can use it against the other side. And what this is doing is creating an environment that is spiraling out of control, and it's perpetuating authoritarianism, and it's moving us farther and farther away from pluralism, liberalism, the values that our country was founded on. And I know I don't have to tell you this, Dan. I don't have to tell Joe Jorgensen this. Most of the country does not want that. Most of the country is in direct opposition to it. It's a fringe minority on either side. So we're really excited because For Your Future Fest it was basically created as the antidote for that. So what we want to do is bring people across the political spectrum, whether they're on the left and the right, as long as they're united in the idea that they are against authoritarianism and they're for liberalism and freedom of expression and freedom of thought. We want to bring them together and kind of show the world that an alternative exists to this extremely toxic and hyper-partisan environment.
I think, yeah. I was going to say that's one of the exciting things about it. And, you mentioned one of the people who is, one of the great unifiers. And I'm a little biased because she's also the president of People for Liberty. But let me bring on with us right now, Dr. Joe Jorgensen. Hey, Dr. Joe, how's it going?
Great to be here. Thanks.
So, you being listed as a speaker, Students for Liberty, it's event. It's one of those things that makes complete sense because you are a lecturer at a major college.
Yes. However, I'm not liberal like most college professors. And so unlike most liberal college professors, I don't think I have the right to spend students' tuition money talking about my personal political beliefs. And the first time a student had mentioned politics was maybe like 10 years ago. And he said, I Googled your name just to find out where your office is so I could, meet with you to go over my test. And I get your Wikipedia page. Were you really vice president? Or the vice presidential nominee? And I've had a lot of students say, well, how come you don't talk about your politics? And I say, because, I believe in property rights. I believe in that if they spend their money on hearing about psychology, learning about psychology, that's what I need to deliver.
So that's a great point, is that there is on a lot of college campuses indoctrination. And so that's where like a group like Students for Liberty is so important. The interesting thing to say at this point is that when Students for Liberty holds an organization like this and brings people together, just seeing that the event is happening, is a really important part for that. And so let me bring on Josh just for a last thing. Josh, you guys are doing a real service here by providing this and letting students know who have Liberty ideas that they're not alone.
Right. And Joe, you might not be a modern day liberal, but you're definitely very close to classical liberalism. And, I absolutely appreciate your voice, and I'm very thankful for you showing up. So it's great I'm looking forward to connecting in person on Saturday.
Yeah, well, I'm looking forward to getting to tell students what I think.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. All I wanted to say to your audience was, Dan pitched it very well. ForYourFutureFest.com. If you use the code LearnLiberty, you can get 50% off. We're going to have some great partners: FIRE, Cato Institute, Reason, Institute for Justice. Obviously, Joe's going to be there and a slew of other speakers. So, no, I just wanted to say thanks, Dan, for having me. Thank you, Joe, for being there. We're looking forward to hearing your talk. And you guys have a wonderful show this afternoon.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Josh. Look forward to seeing you in 2 days' time at the reception.
Sounds good, sir.
Thanks. Talk to you soon. Bye. So, Dr. Joe, let me talk a little bit more about when you, as a college lecturer, when you pitch the ideas of liberty, not proselytizing, but, liberty is supposed to be a politically neutral idea. Do you find that students are very receptive to that?
Well, first of all, since I'm not really talking directly about politics, it's hard to tell. But what's frustrating is seeing across the country people being shut out. And the frustrating thing for me, the maddening thing for me, is that colleges were built to be for free speech, for exchanging ideas. Science is supposed to be, you get all of your ideas out there and you see which one wins out. But what we've had recently in colleges is it's the opposite of that. It's fascism. It's, we're bothered by your message, and so we don't want to hear it. Well, in the olden days, if you were bothered by somebody's message, you would simply show how yours is better, and you would try to win the argument honestly. And so I think that a lot of these students really haven't heard both sides because the other side has kind of been outlawed, which is a real shame. And this will be nice. The one thing, and when I was in college, I knew I was a little different. I had read Atlas Shrugged, and Animal Farm was one of my favorite books. And I felt a little different. And, when I went to the first Libertarian National Convention, it just felt so good because I was among people who believed in the same things I believed in. I wasn't the outsider. I wasn't the outcast. I could talk and not worry about being, ridiculed or whatever. And so I think this is the kind of venue, the kind of event that other people will have those same feelings as I had at my first Libertarian National Convention.
That's a wonderful thing, that awakening of liberty the first time. And I can remember for me as well, I started off, I was a Reagan Republican. Ronald Reagan got elected. I thought to myself, you know what? That's the guy who speaks to me. Part of that was rebellion against my parents, who were both academic liberals, but also
so you were like Alex P. Keaton on
very much so. In fact, for a long time I didn't write a biography because I'm like, this is too much like that television show. Yeah. I don't want it to people think I plagiarized it, but that's exactly where I was. And so, but then Jerry Falwell, Pat Robertson, they sort of convinced me there wasn't place in the Republican Party for me. And then fortunately, I was able to find a home in the Libertarian Party, but it was such a relief and such a revelatory moment to find out that I didn't have to fit into one of the two buckets that were being defined for me.
Yeah. And what's a shame now is that the buckets are not what they used to be. And, in the 80s, when I would try to explain what libertarianism is to people, I would say, well, we take the best of both sides. We take the economic freedoms from the right, and we take the social freedoms from the left. But you can't say that anymore because Republican politicians, now notice I'm saying Republican politicians, not Republicans, because unfortunately, the Republican politicians are not giving the many fine Republican voters what they're asking for. So we've got Republican politicians who, spend money just as freely as the Democrats, and it was noticeably absent from the third debate between Trump and Biden. Economics wasn't even brought up. Right. Spending, the debt, that wasn't even brought up. And then on the left, the Democratic Party used to be the anti-war, pro-peace, pro-free speech side, where you could go out and demonstrate and stuff. Well, now they demonstrate against you for using your free voice.
Yep. And that is, that's going to be one of the best things about this thing, about Freer Future Fest, is the opportunity to talk with other liberty-minded people. Mm-hmm. Now, Freer Future Fest is Saturday. Sunday, there's also a special event, right? At 9 o'clock in the morning, people want to have breakfast with you and me and one of our future guests, Tom Arnold, right? What's happening 9 o'clock in the morning?
Breakfast.
Yeah, as they used to say, the most important meal of the day. We're gonna sit down. You're gonna be there. I'm gonna be there. We'll talk a little bit about the liberty movement and about People for Liberty and what we're doing. And I think, one of the best things about a convention like Freer Future Fest is the ability to talk about it afterwards with people who have been there. Because while you're in the moment, right, there's too much stuff to see. I'm so excited. Gloria Alvarez is going to be there. Miriam Issa. It's a long list of guests, and having some time to decompress and talk to people about that over a cup of coffee and a plate of eggs, I am excited about that opportunity as well. So I want to let people know if they want to get tickets for the breakfast, and this is separate from Freedom Fest, from Free or Future Fest, but go to peopleforliberty.org/Nashville. And if you buy tickets to breakfast, you'll also get a coupon for 50% off your tickets to a Free or Future Fest. So tremendous opportunity. Joe,
And it's a time, you know, when I'm giving a speech, it has to be at least somewhat formal. This is a time to kind of, you know, let our hair down and just talk about things that wouldn't be in the normal Q&A of a speech. So, in fact, last time we ended at the last breakfast, I ended up talking about my speeding ticket. So maybe I shouldn't be putting that out on the air. The speeding ticket that's still with me. I thought I didn't know speeding tickets could become part of your record. Well, so we just talked about cars and fun stuff.
But that's a great opportunity as well. And you know, that's you and I both have to think about that. I'm driving in from DC. You're driving in from South Carolina. Hopefully, none of us will get neither of us will get a speeding ticket. But Joe, I am very excited to see you in Nashville. I'm very excited to hear what you're going to say from the main stage. I don't think we want to spoil it, but people want to get tickets to either the breakfast or to Free or Future Fest. Go to peopleforliberty.org/Nashville, and there's the opportunity to buy tickets to both events there. So
can I add in, you said you don't want to spoil it. I will say this. Of course, I'm going to be bringing up a few points that I mentioned in my campaign, but this is not my campaign speech. This is a brand new speech. So I don't want anybody to say, oh, I've seen her before. I've heard her message before. I'll be talking about different things than the campaign trail.
Yeah, well, you know, it's one of those things that somebody wishes you were president, Joe.
Me too.
She didn't quite win the electoral vote, but she is president of the People for Liberty. So thank you, Tricky, for that comment. Joe, we look forward to seeing you there. And now I'm happy to bring on as a guest a man who needs no introduction in the state of Tennessee. However, I'm going to introduce here as my friend Tom Arnold, sometimes known as Liberty Claus. Tom, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks, Dan. I appreciate it. It's really great to be here. It's great to hear Joe. I've missed Joe. Listening to her for the last, for over a year, and then not being able to hear anymore. It's been kind of, sad.
Well, but so the great thing is you actually are coming to the breakfast too. So
That's it. I'll be at the breakfast, and I'm going to make part of the Free or Future Fest too.
Awesome.
As long as I can put up with it physically.
Well, so that's one of the interesting things about it is that in planning for this and trying to invite people to come to it, stuff like that. Tennessee is a much bigger state than I realized. Somebody coming from outside, from end to end, it's not a short drive from.
No, it's it's an 8.5 hour drive from one end of the state to the other.
So how far away are you coming in from?
Oh, I'm just about an hour and a half. So I've not got a long drive. Yeah, I'm in the central eastern central part of the state. So I'm not too far away.
So, I asked Josh a little bit about why Nashville. How about you? You've been in Tennessee for how long now?
All my life. I mean,
all your life.
I've lived a few places outside of it, but no, I'm a 8th generation native of Tennessee. So.
8th generation. Now that is pretty impressive. So would you say that Tennessee is a place that is generally receptive to freedom, more receptive than the rest of the country?
Well, I would say that it has been when you figure that people like Sam Houston and David Crockett were Tennesseans, and we know Mr. Crockett's thoughts on freedom and not being tied down to a political party and not having a cuff on him by some great man in the White House, and so yeah, we have been. Unfortunately, so kind of like you said about with Pat Robertson and Brother Falwell, we've got Tennesseans who, with our super duper majority here, Republican majority in the state house, and they're not always interested in liberty and freedom. They're a little bit more interested in following a political agenda.
Yeah. Well, I guess that's part of what's exciting about Students for Liberty and Free or Future Fest is that we're getting the message out there that it doesn't have to be like that.
Sure.
Right?
and that's my whole purpose. When I get, when I ran for state chair several years ago in Tennessee, but my purpose was to get the young people empowered. That's because that's our future, Dan. Boomers like me, look at Washington.
Me too.
Yeah, but look how many years of service those folks have in Washington, and they're not going to change anything. They're not changing. They're not making changes for young people. They're not making changes for the future. They're not even making changes that are positive. With debt ceilings going up, and they're going to raise it. They are.
Yeah.
They bunch of Chicken Littles screaming, sky's falling. So.
Well, it's definitely one of those things that people say they're not going to raise the debt ceiling, but it's entirely theater, because we all know the debt ceiling is going to be raised again.
That's it.
I was just talking with a friend of mine who she's much younger, and talked about the fact that she is loyal to the Republican Party. And I said, you know what? I was loyal to the Republican Party until the debt had been raised to 10 times what it was when I had been born. And I said, you're only about 2 years away from that. So I think you wake up to it too.
And, well, people, if you want, my whole thing is young people appeal more to young people than us old folks do.
Yep.
And my point is that what I've always tried to do in Tennessee is to listen to young people,
right?
To listen to what they have to say, to help empower them to learn to say what they need to. Josh Eckel, some young man that just a few years ago I saw him organize a party group in East Tennessee, and then he's moved on to do some fabulous things. He and Justin Cornett both, and I counted a privilege to know them, both of them. I counted a privilege that what the group of young people that we have in Tennessee now that's running our state party are for the most, they're millennials and younger. Josh was just in 25 or 6 when he was chairman of their state party here. And so, it's that's the only way the future is going to get, is young people being empowered. And that's why I'm glad to participate in this Freer Future Fest. And I'm also glad to participate at breakfast with you guys, because Hannah Cox is one, I claim her as one of mine.
Yeah.
Because she started out here in Tennessee working with an organization, and she and I were both libertarian. And, I've watched her grow and blossom and become a phenomenal,
Yep, absolutely.
Spike Cohen the same way. Lots of young people across this country that, I'm ready to fade into the wallpaper, Dan, and let these young people blossom and lead us on.
Well, let's not fade into the wallpaper just yet, because there is still, there's still a lot that we have to do. One of our guests later on, Gloria Alvarez, represents, certainly a generation younger than you and I. But more than that, also the fact that, the liberty movement is larger. It doesn't belong to Americans, right?
That's right. Exactly right.
Exactly. Right. Exactly. And that's, one of the critical things about it, that, what's amazing about the American Constitution is that it doesn't say, oh, government gives you freedom of speech. Government gives you the right to bear arms. It's a very specific message saying government shall not restrict your natural rights. That's one of my favorite things about that, is recognizing that, when we talk about the rights that are in the Constitution, those aren't supposed to be rights for just Americans.
No, that's the other thing, is that we also have to recognize the fact that as individual, the sovereignty of each individual and their rights to work within a community or to live within the community without harming other people and without offending other people, and that's the most, and that those rights are universal, Dan. That right is it's not just something that our Declaration of Independence says, life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. It's life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness for everyone to have that opportunity to do that. And that's what we need to be empowering young people across the globe with that ability to do. So.
Yeah, no. And to that end, we have a unique opportunity now. We're talking about young people, talking about the meeting in Tennessee, to support the people who are hopefully going to change our country for the better, because there's a lot of young people now who are saying, wow, we are building up this enormous debt, right? We're getting ready to raise the debt ceiling. And let's face it, I'm not paying off the debt. You're not paying off the debt. It's not going to be our generation. This current batch of politicians, and I use that word so to not any FCC violations, but this current batch of politicians is borrowing money to give people stuff and making today's children pay it off.
Right.
That's crazy, right?
Right. Right. It's very crazy. It's, $60,000 or $70,000 a child's born today, and in the United States, and $60,000 or $70,000 that they already owe to the government is their share. If you divvy it up that way, it's ridiculous. And and I see all these I call my little Liberty grandbabies being born, and I sure want to see a lot more freedom in my lifetime, just so they'll have that opportunity to be free.
Yeah. So let me ask people a couple things, since you are from the area. What's the weather like? What's it going to be like this weekend?
It's been raining this week, which has been good and bad because I'm in the construction business. So,
all right.
But trucking is going great this week. So,
well, I can imagine. Imagine construction there is like it is everywhere else. So the event itself, Saturday, it's outdoors. It's actually in Sound Stadium, which I'm guessing is, I've never seen a game there. It's the Nashville Sounds of the AAA affiliate of the Milwaukee Brewers.
Right.
I imagine it's a pretty big stadium. It's a baseball.
It's a beautiful stadium. It's fairly new. I mean, it's only been built in the last 5-6 years, so it's a new stadium. So yeah.
All right. So obviously we're going to have to bring sunscreen because it could potentially be very sunny. I'm bringing layers because I don't know. I mean, it's going to be mostly warm, right?
Yeah, it'd be mostly warm. It'd probably be in the 70s. That's
70s. All right.
That's just kind of that's late September, early October weather.
All right. Well, so that's good. And then the final thing is, people are coming by. Saturday is the big event. Sunday's the big breakfast. But I need somebody to back me up here. If you've got a Saturday night in Nashville, and let's take aside from the fact there's also a Vanderbilt home game,
right?
But there might be one or two live music opportunities somewhere in the city of Nashville.
Sure, lots of them.
Right.
But because I don't know, I don't get to go out much because I'm one of those. I do the thing at this particular time, and there are places that won't allow me to come in because of my personal situation. But there's some really good venues in Nashville. Second Avenue has several good venues. City Winery, of course, they're one of those that won't let me in now. So. Deny me my liberty, but that's my own choice. I mean, I can play by their rules if I wanted to, but I'm not going to. So yeah.
I hear you. Well, I will say that too. Having I did my first undergrad in Austin, which is another live music town. But for people who have been in live music or seen live music in other cities, it's not the same as getting into a great music town.
No, that's right. And the sad part, though, Dad, is some of the best exit in and some of the best live music venues in Nashville, unfortunately, closing. They're closing not because of COVID, but they're closing because of developers. And we've got a lot of developers who have come to Nashville, and they're taking our beautiful old buildings. So there's a phrase here for those of us, that talk about it sometimes, that the next generation of developers is going to be tearing down buildings that are only just 30 or 40 years old instead of 150 or 200 years old.
Yeah, well, I think that is sort of one of the curses of, our modern world, is that it's so easy to build now, right? I mean, what buildings that used to take a year to go up can be built in under a month now, and it's just astonishing. But so that being said, we're going to have this huge Liberty Festival. I'm excited to see you there.
I'm excited to see everybody there. I mean, there's so many names. I'm particularly interested in what Matt and Terry Kibbe are going to be talking about.
They're doing a whiskey event as well.
Yeah,
my understanding is there may be good sour mash.
That. We're both we're both bourbonarians, so
that's awesome. Well, Tom, I sure appreciate you coming on talking about.
Thank you, Dan. And like I said, I'm looking forward to seeing everybody and young people. If you're watching this, look me up. I might even have some presents in my pockets that I can give out on Saturday. So,
well, that is something worth doing. So everybody knows that we should go and find Tom to do that. I have a couple other guests I'm going to bring online. First, I want to bring on really one of the most important figures in the Liberty world right now. And unfortunately, she's not as widely known in the United States as she should be. But let me just bring on first Gloria Alvarez. Hey, Gloria, how's it going?
Hey, Dan, how's it going? I'm very excited. I can't wait to be in Tennessee.
Well, let me ask you, have you ever been to Tennessee before?
No, it's my first time. So I'm very excited about that.
Well, so you heard Tom talking about Nashville, and obviously Nashville is one of those cities that has, this enormous reputation for. So one of the things that's always astonished me is that, I grew up, I was a rock and roll guy. That was my favorite kind of music. Yeah. And to find out that country music outsells rock and roll by 2-1, I was just amazed to learn that. So the first time I went to Nashville and I got to see good country music live, I thought that was an amazing thing. So I'm excited that we're going to have a Liberty event on Saturday. And then Saturday evening, there's an opportunity to go see a tremendous amount of live music, and it's going to be amazing. When were you invited to come to this event? Do you remember?
I was invited back in January by Magnus Jorgensen from Iceland, and he's part of Students for Liberty there. And he was telling me, well, we're doing this. It's going to be beyond LibertyCon. We want to make a fest. We want to bring art. We want to bring culture, music into the ideas of liberty. So you have to say yes. And I'm like, okay, when is this happening? And he is like, October. And I'm like, how are you making plans for October? I don't even know what's going to happen after the crazy 2020 that we had.
Sure.
After, I don't know, I couldn't plan two months in advance.
Yep.
And I'm so excited that this is finally happening. I think we all need it after such a year where so many people around the world used COVID as an excuse to annihilate liberty in so many ways, and not only governments, like civil society turn against each other, like neighbors calling on other neighbors because they were not respecting the curfew or the quarantine. And I think it was horrible how some governments made a synonym social distancing with being completely locked up. I don't think that those two should have been handled as synonyms, because
right.
You need nature, you need fresh air. The economy is vital for everybody, right? So I'm very excited that this festival is happening. I hope that is the first of many. And I'm also like you, Dan. I love music. My core is rock and roll. I started on radio when I was 19 years old, and I loved playing music on the radio for young people, and so I'm very excited about that.
You raise an interesting point about the fact that so they scheduled this in January, so that's pre-vaccine, right?
Yep.
It's a time where most people are unsure of what's going to happen, but you talk about sort of the authoritarian things that have happened along the way. Tennessee is one of the few states that never had a mask mandate, that remained open all the time. And, people can judge which one. I don't want to be pro-vaccine or anti-vaccine. I will disclose I'm vaccinated. That was my personal choice. I think everybody should make the choice that they're happy with. Of course, I'm also a lot older than everybody else. But there is a truth to the matter that Tennessee didn't have any draconian impositions. Tennessee is still here, right? It's not like California or Massachusetts where they had these incredible restrictions. Tennessee's really in the same boat. And so there's something to be said for exactly what you said about the ability to get outdoors, fresh air, that sort of thing. And so, this is going to be a big outdoor event. And, I have another guest here, Martha Bueno. Martha, are you ready for us?
Hi.
Oh, hey, Martha, how's it going?
Great. How are you guys? Hi, Gloria. Hi, Dan.
So, Martha, Gloria, you're coming in from DC now, right?
From Mexico City, actually.
From Mexico City. Wow.
Yep.
How hard? When do you have to cross the border? Like, is it an easy process now? Or you can just get across?
Half and half. You have to get a COVID test before flying, and then it's good. It's not my first time in the States. I've been in Austin this year, and it is not as worse as it could be.
Good enough. I love Austin. Now, Martha, you are coming in from Dade County, right?
Yes, sir. From Florida, from the open state of Florida.
The open state of Florida. Well, so Tennessee's also pretty open, but so you're coming in with People for Liberty, right?
I am. I'm so excited. I'm so excited to see Gloria and Dr. Joe and you and everybody at our breakfast on Sunday.
At our
and
breakfast
of course,
on Sunday, which
of course at the festival.
Exactly. Well, and so I'll put that thing up there again. So Gloria and Martha and I and Dr. Joe and Tom are all going to be at a breakfast Sunday morning, 9:00 at the Grand Hyatt in Nashville. It's going to be very nice, especially if you like coffee, which I really like coffee the day after a big event. But also, then Saturday is the big festival. It's going to be in the ballpark. It's going to be filled with people. And there's something about a giant Liberty event, right? I mean, Martha, you've been to Liberty conventions beforehand. It's different than most of the things that we do, right? There's something about that feeling of being there.
I love Liberty conventions. It's kind of it's its own special thing. You get to hang out with people who are liberty minded just the same way we are. And I think it's really special. It's different than hanging out with other groups maybe that don't see the same way you do politically. Liberty conventions, there's a lot of liberty. You talk about these subjects, which it's why we're all here. It's what we love to talk about.
And there's a lot of broad issues. You recently have been doing a lot of work supporting Cuba. And actually, I saw another report yesterday about how bad things are in Cuba right now. Do you want to talk a little bit about the People for Cuba and the SOS organization?
Oh, I'd love to. And also, for those that don't know, Gloria is also part Cuban. Gloria, your father was Cuban, right?
Yeah. Yes. We are fellow Cubans there, and we also made a protest here in the Cuban dictatorship embassy in Mexico. But please tell the work.
Yes. So, fellow Cubans in the liberty fight. I love this. And so what we're doing with People for Cuba is we're raising funds to get medicine to people in most need in Cuba, which is a lot of people, especially people who don't have family outside of Cuba, that don't get remittances from the United States. That's really how most people are able to survive, is through what their family sends. And so People for Cuba is raising funds and getting medications through any means necessary and legal means into Cuba. But we are doing it so far. We've gotten a few shipments in, close to 1,000 pounds at this point of medications, specifically things like Tylenol, first aid type of things, and antibiotics, which are in short supply on the island, and people just don't have access to it. And, COVID is real, regardless of how we feel about vaccines or mandates or whatnot. COVID is a real thing. And the people of Cuba are experiencing COVID, and they need our help. They absolutely do. I know that there's a lot of misinformation for people on what is really happening in Cuba. And I hear a lot, especially from Americans, about how the Cuban health system is superior to ours, and it's just not the truth. And so we're also kind of having to combat that misinformation for people that just don't know.
So you raise an excellent point. Now, the other thing about a convention, a giant Liberty convention, is that you're going to get to talk to people who are doing things in the Liberty movement. So it's really been a privilege for me to work with Martha and to see her do things and to make it different and impact the world. People who aren't aware, Gloria is not just, a presenter. She's also an author, and she's also an activist. She has changed the Liberty world. people who are coming to this event, these people are just going to be around. You can talk to them. You can come up. People who want to get autographs, I will be available. But it's a wonderful thing. So I kind of want to close. I want to thank you guys for being here. Saturday, For Your Future Vest in Nashville. Sunday, breakfast. Gloria, Martha, myself, Tom Arnold, Joe Jorgensen. People want to get tickets. It's peopleforliberty.org/Nashville. It's there, running there at the bottom underneath People for Cuba. And guys, thanks so much for being on the show. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Martha. See you in Nashville. So close.
See you guys in a few days.
See you guys this
Bye.
weekend. Bye. Thank you.
Bye.